All right, and we'll keep a lookout for anybody else who might be joining. If anyone else sees a message from anybody or somebody waiting to join and I've missed it, please do let me know so that I let everyone in. Sometimes it's a bit tricky to see. Oh yes, you will. All right, then let's crack on then. Right, and hopefully you can see that and shout if you cannot. So, like I was saying, Aya, we are from Aya, Awaken Your Awareness. And throughout this course, you will understand exactly what we mean by that term, awaken your awareness. Now, there's a couple of things I'll go through, even though this is lesson 2 of the course. There's a couple of things I will go through every lesson just for the reason I've just mentioned, so that people joining halfway through the course still get an idea of what's going on in the course, basically. So this is our logo at Aya. This is the blue butterfly. And the butterfly is a symbol of transformation, and going on a self-healing journey is a type of transformation. And just to stress that self-healing is not necessarily about fixing a particular condition or finding a cure for a particular illness. It's about lifestyle mainly. It's a way of living well. And if we make these self-healing techniques that we're going to teach as part of this course part of our daily routine, then eventually, if we do it for long enough, then the irony is actually, for the long term, it does tend to keep ill health away. It gives us the best chance possible to stay healthy. So that's what self-healing is about. And we think that that applies to everybody. So going on a self-healing journey applies to everybody, not just people who are feeling ill or have an issue of some kind that they want to fix. So going on a self-healing journey transforms a person. That's why our logo is the butterfly, a symbol of transformation. And the blue color is a symbol, or actually it's a frequency of unconditional love. And we'll explain exactly what we mean by that frequency color of unconditional love. But that deep electric blue color is the color of unconditional love. And unconditional love is one of our highest values at Aya. So this is called the Aya Healing Pyramid course. And this is the Aya Healing Pyramid. It's only one side of the Aya Healing Pyramid. If you remember last lesson, we went through the different sides of the Aya Healing Pyramid. And I will give you a bit of a reminder in just a second. Now, I'll just briefly go through the lessons of the course, just for anybody who's new here today. And just as a quick reminder as well, these are the 7 lessons. On the left, you've got the 7 lessons of the course. You've got the Aya Healing Pyramid, which is lesson 1. That's the one we did last month. That gives an overview of the whole pyramid. So what we've done in the pyramid is that we've split the human system into 5 different layers. And then we target each one of those layers with different self-healing exercises to keep each layer healthy. So that's the first lesson. We do an overview. And then there's a lesson on every single layer of the pyramid, and somebody else is arriving now. Right then, so yeah, then as I was saying, as each layer of the pyramid then gets a whole lesson for that particular layer. So then we've got the material body layer, the bioenergy layer, the emotional layer, the psychological layer, the spiritual layer. Don't worry, I'm going to go through these in a bit more detail in just a second to remind you. And then lesson 7 is the silent revolution. That is the concept of what can happen on a collective level when it comes to self-healing. What a self-healing journey can do when we apply it to a lot of people, or globally, let's say. Right, don't worry too much about the stuff written on the side there on the right. These are the assignments that we are working on, and they're not really implemented yet, so don't worry about that. But when eventually in this course, we're going to write a set of assignments, and then people can, if they want to do the assignments, then they can get a certificate for the course. And by the way, you can already get a certificate, an attendance certificate for this course. But then when we bring the assignments in, it'll actually be a qualification in self-healing. But right, let's get on. And as start off with a self-healing technique, just to get activated, get into the practical side of things. Now, if you remember if you were here last month, we did basic yogic breathing. And basic yogic breathing, I'm going to go over the basics of it now in a second, but basic yogic breathing is one of the most basic breathing exercises, which it forms part of the science of pranayama yoga. Now I call it a science. It's an ancient science, the yogic science of breath, or energy breath. So today we're going to learn a slightly different one, but it's based on basic yogic breathing. It's called Golden Energy Yogic Breathing. Now, we teach, if this is the first time you're here today, just to let you know, we teach a different self-healing technique for every lesson. So there is one lesson per month, around about mid-month or so on Saturday mornings like today. And we teach one self-healing techniques for each lesson. And we spread it out per month, one lesson per month. And it's not very much, is it? But we spread it out that way because we want people to go away and practice these exercises. So we're going to teach you a self-healing technique, and today it's a breathing exercise. And then we're hoping that people will go away and practice it. It takes a good month to practice it, and then come back with questions and comments, and then move on to the next self-healing exercise the following month. So today it's Golden Energy Yogic Breathing. Now, last month it was basic yogic breathing. So today I'm going to go through basic yogic breathing, just in case anybody is new here today. And then the golden energy bit is using the same exercise, but then you add on a visualization to that breathing exercise. So let me just remind you about basic yogic breathing. Right, and so let's talk about basic yogic breathing first quickly, and then we'll add the visualization of golden energy yogic breathing. So now, most of you have done basic yogic breathing before, last month. So basic yogic breathing is a slow, deep breathing rhythm. And it's just pretty much the most basic yogic breathing rhythm in pranayama yoga. And so I'm just going to talk through the rhythm, the technique, and the counting for you, first of all. So on the in-breath, the belly comes out first. So it's sometimes called belly breathing. So belly comes out first on the in-breath, then the chest comes out. Then your lungs are only sort of 90% full there. You can still fit a little bit in. So you go right up to the top. Really, it's important to get as much air into your lungs as you possibly can for this. It's good for your lungs. It's good for your lung capacity in the material body, but it also expands your energy body capacity. Now, we're going to talk about the energy body quite a lot in this course. But there's things going on in subtle energy as well as in the material physical body. So on the in-breath, belly comes out, chest comes out, then you fill right up to the top, and then you hold your breath for about 2 or 3 counts of 2 or 3, something like that on the top of the breath. And then you let all the air out in a long, slow, steady stream, all the way down to the bottom of the breath. And then you hold your breath again for another count of 2 or 3 or so, something like that. And then repeat. So that's the technique. It's important to get the technique right, and it's important to get that belly out and the chest out, because sometimes when you think you're breathing in, you're thinking things should go in. So actually it takes a little bit of practice actually to actually push that belly out on the in-breath, and it's very important because then you're really using your lungs properly. The diaphragm, when you're breathing in, the diaphragm needs to come out and down, and that's what actually sucks that air into your lungs. Now there's a bit of counting to do as well, just to get the counting right. So on the in-breath, you want to be counting to a count of about 4 or 5, but that does depend on your lung size, so you can adapt it to yourself. It doesn't have to be 4 or 5 exactly. It's more the ratio that matters, the ratio between the in-breath and the breath hold. So 4 or 5 to the top, hold 2 or 3, out for the count of 4 or 5 again, and then hold 2 or 3. The ratio is more important than the actual time that you're counting, because somebody with very small lungs may not hold it for the count of 4 or 5. So you just got to experiment yourself. Eventually, you can do that without counting, by the way. That's just to give you a guide, because when you move on to the next exercise, which is this one, Golden Energy Yogic Breathing, you want to be able to do it. You want to be able to do it without actually counting, because you're going to be concentrating on the visualization. So if you're new here today, just do the basic yogic breathing, and I'll just do a demonstration again, just to show you. So. Okay, that's the basic yogic breathing. So if you're new here today, just do that one. pretty much to start with. Get your head around, the counting and the technique and that. Now, for everybody else who was here last month, you can do the golden energy yogic breathing. Now, that's adding a visualization on top of that. So what you do is that on the in-breath, hopefully you've done basic yogic breathing a little bit now, so it's become routine, it's become automatic, and you don't have to think while you're doing it. You don't have to concentrate, my belly's got to do this, my chest's got to do that, and then I've got to count. That takes a little bit of time just to become automatic. So once it's become automatic, you can add a visualization, which doubles the impact of the breathing exercise. And I'll talk a little bit in a second about what the breathing exercise is actually doing for you. But the visualization, so on the in-breath, you want to visualize, you want to imagine, you want to try and see or form the intent that golden energy is going to be pouring in from the outside and filling up your whole energy body on the out-breath. Now, just imagine that your energy body is a sack of energy which extends outside your physical body, extends to about 10 centimeters outside your material physical body. It's like a sack of energy that holds golden energy. Imagine this golden energy everywhere outside you, and it starts pouring into you on the in-breath of the breathing exercise. And as your lungs get fuller and fuller of air, your energy body is filling up with that golden energy until on the top of the breath, when your lungs are completely full of air, you're completely full of golden energy. And then on the breath hold, when you're just holding your breath for a few seconds there, visualize or imagine that golden energy exploding out in all directions, as if you're an exploding sun or an exploding star. You're just trying to visualize that. And then as you're breathing out, you keep that golden energy in your energy body. So don't breathe it back out again is what I mean there. And that's different to some other exercises that when, for example, in chakra breathing that we're going to do next month, you're actually breathing that color back out again. But for golden energy, you bring that golden energy into your energy body, and then you're breathing out, but you're keeping that golden energy in. Very important that you do that. Okay, has anyone got any questions before you give that a go? Okay, so let's all give that a go, and then afterwards I'll just remind everyone what that's actually doing for us. Okay, so if you guys just start that rhythmic breathing, and I'll let you know when to start. We'll only do about 7 to 10 breaths or so. Okay, and please give it a go if you want. If you don't want to give it a go, perfectly fine. It's completely up to you. Okay, I'll let you guys know when to stop. And you can, by the way, you can do it with your eyes closed or open, and try and keep a vertical spine with this one. And if you can, use your nose for nose breathing. It doesn't matter if you use a bit of mouth, not a problem, but try and use your nose if you can. Okay, go for it. Okay, has anybody got any questions or comments about that? Okay, so just briefly about breathing exercises. Why do we do breathing exercises? Well, there is a lot of research already that exists now which shows that breathing exercises are very good for the body. It's been known for thousands of years in good for one's health, but there is a whole other side of breathing exercises that is actually happening in the energy body, in subtle energy, in the bioenergy layer. So in our layers of the pyramid, there is the bioenergy layer. That is actually magnetic fields. But you may recognize the terms like chi, or you may have heard the word chi, or you may have heard the word prana, or subtle energy, or life force. These are very traditional words for this type of energy which flows around the body that's integral to our health. Now, breathing exercises actually impact the bioenergy layer, and especially in terms of blockages. Now, it's become a very popular idea in recent times that we hold memories or trauma in our body somewhere. And this is actually referring to negative emotional energy. When we feel negative emotions, we're producing a negative emotional energy. Now, that actually is what gets trapped in the energy body. Now, this is not yet part of mainstream science, but it's part of many ancient systems of healing and medicine. And breathing exercises allows that trapped energy to be released. So quite often, it's not uncommon actually to feel an emotion while we're doing breathing exercises. It's not uncommon to actually shed a tear or two sometimes when we're doing breathing exercises. And there's a reason for that. And sometimes that can happen while we're doing the breathing exercise, or sometimes it can actually happen at other times in the day. If we're doing regular breath work, we can get these emotional flushes. And that is a good thing. Just so that you realize, if you do feel that, that is a very good thing. That means you are releasing trapped energy. You're releasing those emotional traumas and memories from the past. So that's what breathing exercises can do for the energy body, for our emotional system. And our emotional system has so much impact on the health of our material body, of course. Okay, but let me move on now. So quick reminder before we start the main bulk of the lesson of the Aya Healing Pyramid itself. So this is just to show you that it is a three-dimensional structure. Don't worry about reading the writing on it for now, but it's got information on three sides. And these are the three sides. Now, we did this last month, of course, so it's a reminder for some of you, but maybe if you're new here today, you haven't seen this before. There's three sides, and the blue side is the names of the layers, and the green side is the self-healing techniques that we apply to each one of those layers. And then the yellow side is the results of self-healing. Now, let me just remind you about side one, in case you're new here today. Now, side one is the names of the layers. So the material body layer, that's this material physical body that we all know so well. And in fact, that's the subject of this lesson today. The bioenergy layers, as I was just talking about, the bioenergy layer is the energy flows around our body, which are actually types of magnetic field, but they flow around our body. They are sustaining the material body. They are part of the energy body, and there's all sorts of magnetic energy frameworks that form part of the bioenergy layer. Now, this has been known for thousands of years in many ancient cultures, not yet part of mainstream science. So I want to try and be clear in this course where we are, where certain things that we're saying are accepted fact or accepted mainstream science or medicine, and then which bits are not yet accepted. So we're trying to make sure that we're clear about that. So the bioenergy layer is not yet mainstream science. Then we've got the emotional layer, which is our emotional cycle and all the different aspects of our emotional cycle and what fuels our emotional cycle. And then we've got the psychological layer. The psychological layer is our personality, everything within the personality, our subconscious memories, even our psychological identity. And then we've got the spiritual layer. The spiritual layer is at the top of the pyramid. Now, there is actually a cascading effect of health and well-being down the pyramid. So if you get the top right, then everything tends to cascade into place. If you get the top wrong, everything can cascade out of place or out of balance. So what do we mean by the word spiritual? Because spiritual is a very loaded word, isn't it? It can mean all sorts of different things to different people. And we certainly don't mean it in a religious sense. What we mean when we use the word spiritual is the fact that there is a silent inner peace inside everybody just waiting to be found. If we look behind the contents of the mind, we can find an inner peace. And it's in everybody. All you have to do is look. And finding that inner peace can actually impact all of the other layers of the pyramid. So we can increase our health and our well-being just by using certain meditation techniques to find that inner peace. And when we start feeling peaceful inside, everything else starts to transform in all the other layers of the pyramid. And eventually, things tend to transform outside us as well. Because outside of us, really, the outward conditions of our lives quite often tend to be a projection of the inner state of being. So if we change our inner state of being, then quite often the situations in our lives tend to change as well. So that's a quick recap of the Aya Healing Pyramid. But today, we are talking about the material body layer. So let's get on with the material body layer. So here, we're talking about the material physical body. This is the thing that we all know so well because we can see it, we can touch it, feel it. It's right there, isn't it? And it's what most of mainstream healthcare is based on, traditionally speaking. Now, that is starting to change in recent times. There's more, the more focus on mental health, for example, which is over the last sort of 20 years or so. But traditionally speaking, healthcare is mainly based around the material body, isn't it? Now, we call it the material body because it's made of matter. It's made of material energy. Because there are other types of energies in the human system. Now, material energy, what is that? That is atoms and molecules, isn't it? When we look into the material body, in fact, when we look into any matter, like this table is made of matter, if we look into matter, we find molecules, which are made of atoms. If we look even more closely at atoms, we find they're made of subatomic particles. We look even closely at that, we find that they are made of a type of energy. So matter is just made of energy. Now, this is actually pretty much accepted mainstream science. Now, one thing I want to draw your attention to is something called the Krebs cycle. Now, you may have heard of this, you may have not heard of this, it doesn't really matter. But the Krebs cycle is a chemical reaction in the cells of the material body, and the chemical reaction is the process of cellular respiration. It's how the cells make their energy to power the material body. And this is the chemical reaction. Now, it's a very complex chemical reaction. So this is this is just simplified into its basic constituents. So food plus oxygen. We eat food, don't we, to get our energy. We breathe oxygen in, or we breathe air in that contains oxygen. Now, we burn those two things in chemical reactions in the cell. That is the Krebs cycle. And out of it comes carbon dioxide, which is a waste product, which we breathe back out again, and ATP energy. Now, ATP energy is just a type of molecule which carries electrical, it carries a type of energy, and that's what powers the material physical body. So I want to just bring that up because it'll tie a few things in as we go through the course. Now, this is a lesson about the material body, but it is not a lesson necessarily about anatomy. However, we do need to just have a quick look at anatomy and discuss various systems in the material body. We're not going to spend too long on it because it is not about anatomy, and there is a bottomless pit of information when you go into anatomy. The body is so complex. So let's just run through a few different systems in the body. And by the way, for those of you who did last month when we talked about the whole of the A healing pyramid, as you go through this lesson, try and remember what we talked about in the bioenergy layer, because I want to try and start to bring everything together, bring the layers together. For example, we've got anatomy in the material body, haven't we? Systems and organs. Well, actually, we've also got systems and organs in the bioenergy layer, made of magnetic energy. Things like chakras, things like meridian systems. These are all systems and organs. Not like these exactly, because they're not material energy. Slightly different. But I'm trying to build a picture of the human system, and the fact that all this anatomy in our bioenergy layer is not yet part of mainstream science because it hasn't found those particular types of anatomy. So as you go through this lesson, just try and relate back to the bioenergy layer sometimes. And I will remind you to do so. So let's just take a few of these systems as examples. So we have skin. The skin is an organ. The skin is actually the biggest organ in the body. The skin is a covering around our bodies, and it has all sorts of various other functions as well. It's a temperature regulator, for example. We actually excrete. Then we've got a musculature system. Now, our muscles are what enable us to move around, of course. And what allows our muscles to allow us to move around? It's ATP energy. So a muscle, when it contracts, it needs energy. Now, it's ATP energy which gives the muscle the ability to contract. Now, ATP energy, remember what I just said, it's created in the Krebs cycle in every cell. So in every cell, in every muscle fiber, there is this reaction going on. It's burning food and oxygen, and it's creating ATP energy that allows the muscle to actually contract and allows us to move around. And in fact, every process in the body needs ATP energy. And we have a circulatory system, of course, don't we? We have a heart, and it pumps blood around the body. Now, the blood is how the nutrients get to the cells. Is how oxygen gets to the cells. So we breathe in air with oxygen in it into our lungs. That goes into our blood, and the blood carries the oxygen to every cell of the body. We eat food into our digestive system. That absorbs into the blood, and the blood carries the nutrients around the body because that is needed in the Krebs cycle to make ATP energy. And here's a few systems just lumped into one. We've got the brain here, of course, the control system for the body in the nervous system. We've got the respiratory system here in the middle that you can see, the lungs and the diaphragm. Now, the diaphragm is the darker colored bit underneath the lungs. That is the bit when we breathe, that comes down and out and pulls the lungs or inflates the lungs. That pulls air into our trachea through our mouth and inflates the lungs. And that's how we're getting the oxygen into the blood. And then you've got on this diagram, you've got the renal system there, the two kidneys, connected to the bladder by the ureters. So the kidneys, they are a filtration system for the blood. They filter out impurities from the blood. They also regulate the amount of water in the blood. And they produce urine, send the urine down through the ureters into the bladder, and then the urine comes out through the urethra. And the digestive system. Of course, this is where we get our nutrients from. And this is a big part of this lesson, the digestive system, because in the material body, the self-healing techniques to do with keeping the material body healthy is, not surprisingly, nutrition and exercise, physical exercise. And we have a skeletal system, of course. If we didn't have a skeletal system, then we would just be a big mess on the ground. We have an internal skeletal system, an endoskeleton. But, not all animals have an endoskeleton. Can anybody think of an animal which doesn't have the skeleton on the inside? Crab, yeah, exactly. Yeah, crab has an exoskeleton, yeah. Same with insects as well. A hard shell on the outside, lots of gooey stuff on the inside. So that's enough about anatomy, though, just to give you a few examples of different types of anatomy. But it's very important because in the bioenergy layer, we're going to come back to some of these concepts, especially the Krebs cycle, how ATP energy is made in the material body. And it's linked to our research projects as well, because we've got some research projects at Aya. And the research projects, some of them are designed to be researching or finding evidence for the bioenergy layer and bioenergy anatomy, things like chakras and meridian systems and things, which are so important to our well-being. So now let's talk about factors affecting the health of the material. And the first one is genetics. So what is genetics? Well, I'm sure most of you are aware of genetics in some degree, and most of you have probably heard of genes and DNA. Well, genetics is the concept that there is a blueprint in every single cell of the material physical body. There is a blueprint for making that body. It's a set of instructions. And not only does it make that material body when the embryo is growing, the baby is growing, does the DNA construct the whole body, but it maintains it throughout the course of somebody's life. And this is a DNA strand. So the DNA strand is a molecule. It's a molecule which is held in the nucleus of every single cell, and there are trillions of cells in the body, all different types of cells with different functions, but they're all controlled by the DNA in the nucleus of the cell. And this is a DNA molecule or a DNA strand. And as you can see, there is this double helix shape. And each one of those little rungs of the ladder is actually called a nucleotide base. And that's just a type of molecule. Don't worry about it. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that it's like a code. It acts like a code, acts like a language This is how information is held in the DNA molecule. And this is a type of programming, you could say, like a computer programming. Now, I'm bringing this up because there is also types of programming in the bioenergy layer. So magnetic fields can also be programmed. And this is how magnetic fields hold structures. A chakra, for example, is an energy pump, but it holds structures to it in the same way that the material body has structures in and can hold information. Now, do we have any control over our genes? Do we have any control over our genetics? Has anyone got any ideas? Right, yes, so it's all inherited. So that's very, very true. Now, you know, when I learned genetics at school and university, the view of genetics was that it was just purely inherited and it didn't change throughout the course of your life. But quite recently, let's say in the last 10, 15, maybe even 20, maybe let's say 10 years, there's been some advances on genetics and the field of epigenetics has grown. Epigenetics is a deeper understanding of genetics. Epigenetics is the concept that our genes actually change throughout the course of our lives. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the code changes, but they found that there are switches on the genes. The genes can actually get switched on and off. Now, a gene, by the way, is just a segment of DNA with a particular code to it, which codes for something. Like for making a particular type of protein, which can then turn into a hormone or something like that. So DNA is the instructions that really build everything in the cells. Epigenetics is the idea that genes can be switched on and off. And what they found is that actually various things can affect our epigenetics. Things like our environment, things like our nutrition, things like our emotional state can actually change our genes. Turn genes on and off. And these changes can be passed on to our offspring. So there is a lot of genetic conditions that cannot be changed, but there is also some influence that we can have on our genetics through lifestyle. So that's genetics. That's the first thing that impacts the health of the material. Next thing is our environment. Now, I'm not talking about nature here. I'm talking about the environment that we put ourselves in, our surroundings, where we live, what our profession is, what we put ourselves through. Now, what about this one? Do we have any control over our environment? What do you guys think? Are you saying something there, Diane? Sorry? Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I guess you could say that you have some control over where you live. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a bit of both there, isn't it? You could say, because you could say on one hand that yes, you have a choice. You can choose to put yourself in certain unhealthy places or environments or situations, and you can choose to remove yourself from those places. But not always that simple, because some people don't have a choice. Some people maybe are born into a situation which they don't have much choice. So some people maybe don't have so much choice. And on top of that, perhaps you also need the awareness of it to be able to choose. If you're not aware that an environment is an unhealthy environment, you also need awareness to change that. So that's environment. So genetics, environment. Number 3, the layers of the pyramid. Now, this is starting to become clear in mainstream science, but it's still, a very, it's in its infancy, the field of study, really. And a lot more research is going into this now. But the other layers of the pyramid have a massive impact on the material body. And look where the material body is on the pyramid. It's right at the bottom of the pyramid. So it's got the weight of all those layers on top of it, bearing down on it. So quite often when we have a problem in the material body, what do? We go to the hospital. We go to the doctors to see what the problem is. But it's only when we have a symptom in the material body that we do that. That problem could have been manifesting for decades sometimes in the other layers of the pyramid, because all these layers have an impact. that cascading effect that I talked about at the start, the cascading effect of health and well-being down the pyramid. For example, the bioenergy layer, blockages in the chakras, in the emotion regulating chakras, eventually cause ill health in the material body. For example, somebody with a very strong blockage in their throat chakra for decades, let's say, will end up getting health problems such as malfunctioning thyroid gland, for example. Someone with a very deep blockage in their heart chakra will eventually, over a long period of time, start having heart problems. So blockages do affect the health of the material body. And where are those blockages coming from? Well, they're coming from the emotional layer, because those blockages are made of emotional energy, negative emotional energy. So it's our emotions which are causing those blockages. And where are those emotions coming from? They are coming from our psychology. The psychology in the mind is what produces our emotions. So it's very important to understand the layers of the pyramid if we're talking about the health of the material body. So do we have any control over that? Any ideas? Well, I would say you have to have awareness of it. If you're not aware of what's going on in the pyramid, then you have no control, do you? If you're aware of it, you can actually start doing things about it. And this leads us to our point 4, which is self-care. Once we become aware of the impact of the other layers of the pyramid, then we can actually do something about it with self-care. And that's, of course, is what self-healing is all about. So before we move on to that, let's stop and do a little bit more breath work. Anyone got any questions so far about what I've said? All right, and so let's go back to golden energy yogic breathing. Now, if you're new here today, it's completely up to you what you do now. You can do the basic yogic breathing. It's probably best that you just do the basic yogic breathing. However, if you want to give the golden energy visualization a go, then it's completely up to you. For everybody else that was here last month, then please crack on with the golden energy yogic breathing. So let me just quickly remind you, you've got the basic yogic breathing, which is the breathing rhythm. Belly comes out, chest comes out, all the way to the top, breath hold, let it all out, all the way to the bottom of the breath hold, and repeat. And then on the visualization, on the in-breath, you want golden energy pouring in from all directions, filling up your energy body with golden energy, clear, clean, bright golden energy. And then on the breath hold, exploding out in all directions. And then you're breathing out on the out breath. That golden energy is staying in your energy body. It's not going out. And then repeat. Give that a go, and I'll let you know when to stop. So let me give you a few applications of that breath work, whether it's the basic one or the golden one. If you do it for a certain amount of time, a short period of time, let's say, you can use it as a quick recentering, part of your emotional emergency toolkit, let's say. If you're locked in a emotional reaction throughout the day, let's say you're frustrated about something. And frustration or anger is not pleasant to feel, is it? It hurts. It's not a nice feeling. And sometimes we can get locked in these little cycles of frustration. Or anxiety, perhaps. Maybe you're feeling anxious about something and you want to stop it. You want to get rid of it. And you can use that exercise to actually recenter yourself, and it just calms you down and sort of eases the emotional reaction. You can use it for that. Maybe if you just 30 seconds or even a minute or something like that can actually have that effect. Now, if you do it for a little bit longer, say the amount of time we just did it for, what it actually might do is actually make you feel a bit sleepy. Now, you can use it just before going to bed sometimes. If you find it difficult to get to sleep in the evenings, you can do it for about that sort of length of time, and it will help you actually get to sleep. It will calm you down and make you sleepy. But be careful if you're going to do that, because if you do it for a little bit longer, the third application, if you do it for between, say, 5 and 10 minutes, you're actually going to get really energized. It's going to give you loads of energy. It's going to give you a boost, and that's going to stop you from going to sleep. Best time to do that would be in the morning, because it sets you up for the day. Really, really good. Gives you a load of energy, sets you up for the day. Now, those timings, you've got to sort of work it out a little bit for yourself, because everyone's slightly different. So you've got to just experiment and see what effect it actually has on you. Now, something else I need to quickly mention here, if you haven't done breath work before, is, now I've already mentioned the emotional flushes that you can get sometimes, and that's completely normal. If it makes you feel emotional or it brings certain memories back up again, sometimes that's okay. That's just getting rid of those those emotional memories and unblocking the energy body. The other thing is that you can sometimes feel a little bit dizzy. If any of you are feeling a little bit dizzy after those breathwork exercises there, then that's completely normal as well. No problem there. If you go away and do this exercise and you feel a bit dizzy afterwards, just stop. Or if you feel a bit dizzy during doing it, just stop for a while. It will go away. That's just an influx of oxygen into the system. The body gets used to that after a while anyway. So the more breath work you do, the less that happens anyway. So it's not. Okay, we're going to have a little break in just a sec. Has anyone got any questions or comments, though, about the breath work that we just did? Awesome. Right then, so we were talking about self-care of the material body as one of the factors that influences the health of the material body. And that leads us on to side 2 of the pyramid, really, doesn't it? So we've talked about side 1 of the pyramid. So through these lessons, each lesson on each layer is going to be constructed with, we start with we start with a little reminder, of course. Then we go into side 1 of the pyramid, where we explain the different layers, the different aspects of that layer. And then we go to side 2 of the pyramid. And side 2 of the pyramid is the self-healing exercises that we use to apply to each one of the layers. So in the material body, let's talk about side 2, and that is nutrition and exercise. Not surprisingly, of course, because that is very well known. I mean, some parts of this course is not so well known, especially the parts that are not part of mainstream science, like the bioenergy layer. But in the material body layer, of course, so much is known about the material body. It's what mainstream science, medicine, healthcare has been focused on mainly. And nutrition and exercise, it's no secret that that is what keeps the material body healthy. However, there's so much information out there on nutrition and exercise, but still there's a problem. Still there's a problem with applying nutrition and exercise, isn't there? Now, as part of this course, we don't want to go overboard on stuff that's easy to research, that information is out there online, very easy to get hold of stuff about nutrition and exercise. So we're not going to go overboard on some of these concepts, but we're going to try and approach it from a slightly different angle, from a more self-healing technique type of angle. So you'll see what I mean as I go through this. But first of all, nutrition and exercise is so well known, but still there is a problem. So why is there still a... So let's just talk about some of the barriers that stop people from applying nutrition and exercise to the material. And this is probably not exhaustive, but here are some examples of the barriers to nutrition and exercise. Time. Now, a lot of people will say they don't have time to research what is nutrition or what is nutritional, or time to create a really healthy meal. Or some people say that it's about money, and that is a fair point. Sometimes it's much easier or cheaper to eat unhealthily than it is to eat healthily, and that is a problem in our system, and really does need to change somehow, doesn't it? Ability, of course, depends on people's level of ability. Some people don't have the ability to physical exercise, for example. Discipline is one of the biggest, isn't it? So this is what most people will be suffering from, the self-discipline to actually force themselves to eat healthily, or put the effort in to eat healthily, build nutritious meals, and physical exercise as well. And priority levels, again. Now, this is linked to time as well, and discipline. But some people just don't put it high enough on their list of priorities. Now, that can be fair enough sometimes, because sometimes things happen in life that just take priority, and everything else sort of gets pushed to the side. And, nutrition and physical exercise very often just gets pushed to the side, doesn't it? So we're going to offer some self-healing techniques as part of this layer that actually address some of these issues. But first of all, let's talk a little bit about nutrition and exercise, because we can't have this lesson without actually talking about the basics of nutrition. But I should add here that I am not a nutritionist myself. So we're just going to talk through the basics, the very basics that everybody should know about nutrition. We do have nutritionists as part of AYA. So if anybody needs specific nutritional advice, then I would then offload that to one of our trained and qualified nutritionists. But let's go through the basics of nutrition. So there are certain segments of our nutrition, or we can separate nutrients out into these 6 different types of nutrients that the body needs. So the nutrients here are types of nutrients that the body cannot make on its own. We have to bring these in from the outside through our diet. So carbohydrates, of course, these are sugars, different types of sugars, and there are many different types of sugars. And there are things like quick release sugars and long release sugars. So quick release sugars are more things like glucose, actual sugars, glucose and sucrose, things like fruit, for example, are quick release sugars. Anything with a sugary drink has got quick release sugars in. Then you've got long release sugars, which are starchy foods, potatoes and pasta and things like that. But sugars are essential for the Krebs cycle. Remember, we talked about the Krebs cycle at the beginning of this lesson. The Krebs cycle is how the material body makes ATP energy, how it powers the muscles, how it powers all the chemical reactions in all the cells. Now, carbohydrates get burnt in the Krebs cycle. It's the primary fuel for the Krebs cycle. That's why when we have something sugary, it gives us a boost of energy, doesn't it? It's the primary source for the Krebs cycle. And that's why long release sugars are actually better for us than short release sugars, because you have a sugary drink or something like that and you get a spike. You get a spike in energy, but it crashes down afterwards. Whereas long release sugars take longer and give you energy for a longer period of time. They take longer to break down. They're long chain sugars. But anyway, that's another story. So carbohydrates, proteins. I need to go through these fairly quickly, to be honest with you, because I think most of you will know a lot of this already. But proteins are the building blocks of lots of things in the material body. Our muscles, of course. Very well known that our muscles are made of proteins. But there's all sorts of other stuff in our body made of proteins as well. Our hormones are made of proteins. Our nails are made of proteins. Our hair is made of proteins. The whites of our eyes are made of proteins. Proteins are going on everywhere in the body. They're the building blocks. We need to feed the body with enough protein to do general maintenance on the body. Proteins, I should actually say that carbohydrates was the actual main source of fuel for the Krebs cycle. Well, actually proteins can also be burnt in the Krebs cycle as well. So we can actually use proteins as a secondary source of energy in the Krebs cycle. So minerals are inorganic molecules that the body needs, that it forms part of the body for various things like sodium and potassium and iron and calcium and iodine, all these inorganic molecules. For example, there's iron in every red blood cell in the blood. So iron is crucial to grabbing hold of that oxygen, the oxygen molecules, because we need oxygen to make ATP energy. We breathe that in. And then the iron in the red blood cell actually latches onto those oxygen molecules. So we need iron as part of our diet. It's just an example. Or calcium, for example, we need calcium to make our bones strong. Potassium is a good example. We need potassium and sodium in our nervous system. When our nerve impulses fire off down our neurons, well, it's actually the movement of sodium and potassium ions that actually create that electrical impulse. So we need sodium and potassium in our diet. There's lots of different minerals, of course, that we need as part of our diet. Vitamins we need as part of our diet, and this is obviously nothing new to you guys, but there's certain organic molecules, different types of acids that are vitamins that are essential for different processes in the body. And these are your vitamins A, B, C, D, etc. These are micronutrients, by the way. Minerals and vitamins are what people call micronutrients, whereas some of the other ones like proteins, carbohydrates, fats, they are macronutrients. And that really just refers to the fact that you need a lot of something or just a tiny amount. So minerals and vitamins are micronutrients just because you need a micro amount of them. And fats. Now, fats sounds like a bad word, but actually we need fats as part of our diet. And there's different types of fats. And there's healthy fats and unhealthy fats, you could call them. And we absolutely need certain fats in the body. There's all sorts of stuff in the body that requires different types of fats. Now, every cell of the body has got what we call lipids in them, which is a type of fat. So you get fats, healthy fats from things like olive oil and seeds and nuts and that sort of thing, and fish as well. And water is a nutrient, or sometimes it's not thought of as a nutrient, but it is a nutrient because we need water as part of the body, and we need a lot of water, and water has various functions in the body. It acts as a lubricant, it acts as a transport system, it acts as a cushioning system, and most of our cells are made of water, of course. Around 70% of our body is actually water, isn't it? So we do need to be drinking a lot of water every day, and there's certain recommended amounts, of course, that you're supposed to drink. So those are the basic areas of nutrition that everybody should be aware of course. Now, this course is about self-healing. So now we need to talk about this in terms of self-healing. And like I said, I'm not a nutritionist or a physical exercise trainer. And there's lots of information out there already on nutrition and exercise and different ways of implementing that into our life. But this is a course of self-healing exercises. So we're going to look at it in a slightly different way in terms of self-healing. So what we're going to say is that when it comes to nutrition, what we need to do is have awareness. That's the main thing. Have awareness of what we put in our bodies, have awareness of where it comes from, have awareness of what is needed for the material body. That's easy to say, of course, isn't it? How do we do that? How do we have awareness of nutrition? Well, our self-healing technique, first one for this lesson in terms of nutrition, is taste meditation. So, taste meditation is a type of meditation that you do when you're eating something or when you're drinking something. So what it is that, let me just remind you about what meditation is quickly. Meditation is very easy to explain. You're focusing on something. That's all meditation is. You're focusing on one thing. It's concentrating the mind on one thing. And you can meditate on all sorts of different things. You can meditate on anything. And we're going to do a meditation at the end of this lesson. And I'll show you some examples. But in meditation, there is a subject and an object. This is basically the essence of meditation, a subject and an object. You are the subject doing the meditating. The object is what you are focused on in the mind. And you can focus on anything. You can focus on something you're seeing. You can focus on something you're hearing. You can focus on something you're feeling in the body. And you can focus on something you're tasting. So the object of meditation can be any of your senses, anything that you're experiencing. So in taste meditation, when you're eating, you're focusing on the taste. You're trying to find that taste and focus on that taste. And it's a type of meditation. So next time you go and eat something, try this out. Try and find that taste of what you're eating and focus all of your mind on that taste. Don't allow anything else to come into your mind apart from that feeling, that experience of that taste. And when you're doing that, that's meditating. Now, why are we suggesting this? Well, what happens is that it starts to change your whole approach towards nutrition. Now, it takes a bit of time. Because you have to practice this. So this happens gradually. So you're not going to get effects, within days. It takes a bit of time. But basically, it gives attention to your whole eating or drinking process. It focuses you on that feeling. Instead of your mind being off and doing all sorts of other random thinking while you're eating, because it's very easy to just allow your mind to go off on its own while you're eating. Instead of doing that, you are focusing everything on that eating process. And that starts to become a habit. So you're using the habit forming capacity of the mind for your benefit. It starts to become a habit. You start to focus on that sensation of taste every time you eat something. What that does is that has an effect throughout your day. Your mind actually starts to think about your food more. And that, you could say, is raising awareness of the whole eating and nutrition process. And then that actually builds into having more motivation and enthusiasm for changing one's nutritional lifestyle. It just happens naturally. So basically, all this trouble that people have with self-discipline or having awareness of what they're eating and what impact that's having on their body, that can all be done almost automatically just by starting with that very simple meditation technique, which is why we say start with taste meditation and the rest will follow naturally. So not only are you getting the benefit of meditating, you're also getting the knock-on benefits of the impact it has in your lifestyle. And then the meditation can spread to other things. It can spread to the cooking process. Now, there's a type of meditation called task-orientated meditation that we talk about later on in the course. Task-orientated meditation. That's a meditation that we do while we're performing a task. And cooking is a perfect example of task-orientated meditation, or TOM for short. TOM meditation. Now, when you meditate while you're cooking, what I mean is you're meditating on your senses. So your mind is in your hands when you're chopping vegetables. Your mind then, you switch to seeing, and you're seeing the colors of the different foods. You're meditating on your senses, basically. And that stops the mind from going off in all the damaging, negative, repetitive thought patterns that it tends to do if we leave it alone. So that's taste meditation. So if you guys can go away and try that, you can try it in a minute, in fact, when you go and have some lunch. Go and try this type of meditation and see how you get on. See how long you can keep your mind in your mouth. How long you can keep your mind in your mouth while you're eating. And you'll notice that your mind drifts off, but every time you drift off, remember to bring it back to your eating process. The taste in your mouth. You can even start to put your mind in the sensations in your teeth and your jaws as you're meditating. Keeps your mind anchored there, focused. So that's taste meditation. That's one self-healing exercise we want to teach as part of nutrition. Now, the next one has to do with exercise. And this is a very similar process. People have similar barriers when it comes to physical exercise. And there's another meditation that's very similar to taste meditation and it's walking meditation. Now, walking meditation is what it sounds like. You're meditating while you're walking. And instead of using the taste sensations in the mouth, you're actually feeling the sensations in your feet while you are walking. So you can do this anytime you walk anywhere. You don't have to say that you're doing exercise. Next time you walk from room to room in your house, you can do this. You put your mind in the sensations in your feet. You know, you can probably do it now, for example. If you feel the sensations that you can feel in your feet right now, you can probably feel some pressure in the undersides of your feet. And if you start moving your feet around a little bit, you can start feeling the pressure sensations moving around the bottom of your feet. So if you can keep your mind there, focused on those sensations, that is meditation. And if you can do it while you're walking, those sensations become quite strong and you probably never even notice them. There's sensations all around the body that we don't notice when we're walking. So keep your mind in your body while you're walking and the rest will follow. The same thing happens as in you start to become more aware of your body. And then you start to think, the mind then through the rest of the day starts to think more about the material body and the exercise process. And you can actually do meditation during any type of exercise. Whatever exercise you're doing, there is tension somewhere in the body that you can use to anchor your mind. So then that it grows to the whole, it grows and grows and grows and gives you more awareness about the material body, and exercising the material body gives you more motivation and enthusiasm about doing exercise. Okay, any questions about that? Hopefully you guys can give it a go. Okay, so the last bit I want to talk about in this lesson is this concept, reincarnation. Now, there is a big problem in our society, and the problem is fear. Now, I know there's lots of problems in our society, but one big problem in our society is fear, and especially the fear of death, or the fear of the loss of the material body, or the fear of our material body becoming ill. This is a big fear. And the fact that our society has become very materialistic in nature, quite superficial in nature in recent times, and seems to be getting worse. It's a bit of an illusion. It's not really getting worse, but it seems to be getting worse. That accentuates the fear, the fear of death, let's say, or the fear of loss. So we want to mention this point here, reincarnation. Reincarnation is a subject which has been part of many spiritual philosophies and religions in the past, of course, and present today as well. Now, we look at reincarnation in a slightly different way, in a biological way, and we have some research projects that are starting which aim to find evidence for what we call biological reincarnation. The idea that reincarnation evolved millions of years ago in early animals as a system or a transport system for emotional memory, and karma emotion being the transport system for emotional memory. And what we're saying is that reincarnation has evolved and is part of our own biology, and it's actually part of biological evolution. Spiritual evolution and biological evolution being part of the same thing. That's what we're saying here. So a lot of what we teach is about reincarnation, and we think that teaching reincarnation and making reincarnation part of mainstream science will actually help a lot with this fear of death that people have, this epidemic of fear of death, fear of loss of the material body. And when we understand that we actually reincarnate, and when we understand that we actually reincarnate in families, in groups, souls reincarnate in families and groups, that helps with the fear of loss of others. So if we know that if people know that they are coming back for another life, then that helps to alleviate the fear of death. If people know that they are part of a greater soul family, then that helps to alleviate the fear of loss of other people around us. So that's another message that we want to include in this lesson about the material body, is our research on reincarnation, our teaching on reincarnation, and how that can actually help people with their fear. And a big part of what we do at Aya is to try and remove fear, take fear away, or alleviate fear. However, we have to do it through evidence, because these days our world runs on evidence, doesn't it? And especially in medicine and healthcare, it's an evidence-based system. So if we want to get into the mainstream, then we have to provide evidence. That's why we've got research projects starting, and we have quite a few different research projects, to be honest. One called the Free Flow Project, which has to do with energy healing and the bioenergy layer, all the different types of energy anatomy that we have as part of our biology. And then we have a reincarnation project, which is aimed at finding evidence for biological reincarnation so that it can get brought into mainstream. And then it becomes part of mainstream science, mainstream medicine, mainstream healthcare. And then more people can benefit from all these different types of self-healing techniques and concepts. Okay, and lastly, side 3 of the pyramid. So we've talked about side 1 of the pyramid, what the material body layer is and the factors that affect the material body. And then we talked about side 2 of the pyramid, the self-healing techniques that we apply to each one of those, to the material body layer. And this is side 3. the results of self-healing. And of course, in the material body layer at the bottom of the pyramid, that's what we're looking for, a healthy material body. Okay, there we are. That's it for the theory today. Any questions or points of discussion to be had about what we've talked about today? Yeah, sure. Okay, let me explain that. So, karma is a very loaded word, isn't it? And it can mean lots of different things to different people. Just like the word spiritual, in fact. But what we mean, and when people think of the word karma, quite often they think of things like, oh, bad things happen to me if I'm a bad person, that type of thing. Or sometimes I'm going through a patch of suffering, I must have been bad, or something like that. That's very often what some people might think. And then that leads to another wider discussion of karma must be then some sort of judgment mechanism, some sort of thing in the universe which judges you and punishes you for things. That's very common, isn't it? That people think of it as a judgment and punishment thing. So our concept of karma here is very different to that. What we're saying is that karma is emotional memory. Now, in the yogic traditions in India, they knew this. They've known this for a long time, that karma is associated with memory. Now, we're going a step further here and saying that it's part of our biology. It's a system which has evolved millions of years ago in earlier animals as a system of retaining emotional memory. Now, can you imagine in animals millions of years ago, that a way of retaining emotional memory helps that animal survive. So it's all about biological evolution, which runs on a process of survival. A survival trait will allow a species to progress further because it keeps individuals alive long enough to pass on their genes. That's what biological evolution was all about. So what we're saying is part of our theory of karma emotion is that emotional memory evolved the ability to be held in bioenergy, in magnetic fields. And then it evolved the ability to survive the death process and then jump back into another individual in another generation. So that's bypassing reproduction. So emotional memory, just imagine keeping emotional memory is very useful for survival. Say fear, for example. If an animal feels fear in a particular situation, remembers it, it's going to keep it alive for longer. Next time that dangerous situation comes up again, it's going to run away from it. It might keep it alive. So emotional memory, like fear, is a very important survival tactic. Now, this is why we think karma evolved as a tool, as a transport system for keeping emotional memory. And then the soul then evolved from that. And then it got a lot more complex. And now we see in humans a very, very complex system of reincarnation and karma emotion as part of the human soul. So really, this is a biological system. It's got nothing to do with cosmic judgment and punishment. It is a cause and effect system. But it's nothing to do with some big being out there who is handing out judgments and punishing people. It's purely emotional memory. And it corresponds to that emotional baggage that everybody carries around with them, basically, from their past. Past traumas, past emotional memories. We carry a big bag of negative emotions around with us as memory. And that has to do with karma, basically. Any other discussion points to be had? Okay. Well, we're only in the infancy. We're only just starting the research project. So we've got our head of research, who is a geneticist at Exeter University. It's very linked to genetics, all this as well. Reincarnation is very linked to genetics as well. So we're only in initial discussions, basically. So we're a long way off of getting that concrete evidence. And anyway, to be honest, that type of evidence is going to be a long process. You don't just suddenly find evidence. You have to do it bit by bit. Lots of different projects. For example, our reincarnation project has got 19 projects within it. So, that might be a whole 15, 20 year process, to be honest. And then when you find some findings, then you have to publish it, and then it gets peer reviewed. and then nobody believes you, and then you have to do it again and again. So it's like build it. You have to build a foundation or a base of evidence, which takes a long time. So it's not an easy, quick process. That's for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it takes time, and scientific theories take time to be established as well. Like the theory of biological evolution, started a couple hundred years ago, or whenever it was, Darwin around that time, and it's taken a long time to be accepted as fact in biology, and even then, many people still don't accept it, especially in very religious circles. So, it takes time, and theories are always a theory, to be honest with you, and they'll always be disputed to some. But you can get to a certain point where you can call it mainstream. That you get to a certain point where it becomes accepted mainstream scientific fact, and that's when then things can get incorporated into medicine and healthcare systems. And that's what we're aiming for, really, is to get all this stuff incorporated into. But it's a long, it's going to be a long old process, which is fine. That's what has to happen. Okay, so we'll do a meditation now. It's up to you if you want to stay for meditation or not. No problem. But of course, a big part of this course is about meditation. We do try and teach in this course self-healing techniques that people can go and take away and try out on themselves, and lots of different types of meditation we teach in this course, and many of them are active meditations. Many of them are the type of meditation that you do while doing other things, like the taste meditation, like the walking meditation, task orientated meditations, all that sort of stuff. But this meditation will be slightly different. It's a different type of meditation. It's getting into a deep, relaxed state, and this is the one where this is a type of meditation where you do have to actually sit down and close your eyes. But we do want to make a point that meditation doesn't have to be done like that. That's the traditional way of meditating, isn't it? Sitting down, closing your eyes. Some people like to be. You got this image of somebody with their legs crossed in a lotus position or something, and doing all this sort of stuff, and turning the lights down or whatever. You don't have to meditate like that. You can meditate while you're doing other things, active things. So we like to teach that in this course. However, this one is a close your eyesy type. Okay, so that was a subject-object meditation, and just gave you a few examples of things that you can focus on in a meditation. So the first one was kinesthetic meditation on the underside of the feet, and that's the same sort of thing as when you're doing walking meditation. And the second one was also kinesthetic meditation, focusing on those inner sensations as you're breathing. You can also vary that a little bit as well, if you can focus on the sensations of your chest moving in and out as you breathe. And the last one was visual meditation, picking something with your eyes closed, picking something that you can see. And you can vary that with different visualizations. You can visualize anything you want and focus on it. Sometimes the mind gets a little bit bored, and you need to keep the visualization interesting sometimes. Like, for example, I used to use a square sometimes, and trace your focus around the edge of a square, just to keep that focus of attention interactive. Or you can visualize a cube spinning around, things like that. So you can use any sort of visualization that you want. And then the last bit was when I mentioned about noticing that you are looking at the object of meditation. That's very important, and I just wanted to introduce that and build that slowly during the course. Because when you're meditating, there is a split between you and what you're focused on. And the whole reason why meditation exists is to find what it is that is doing the focusing. The true self, the pure and peaceful awareness behind the mind, which is completely separated from the mind and the personality in the mind that we generally think of as who we are. That's the false self. Finding the true self is finding that peaceful awareness, which all it does is looks, all it does is watches, all it does is observes. So that's going to be part of the spiritual layer when we talk about the spiritual layer. But we get there through meditation. So I'm mentioning it now so that every time we do a meditation, at the end, try and notice that you are looking at your object of meditation. In fact, it's the same awareness which is looking out of your eyes right now. It's your consciousness. It's your awareness. And that can be separated from mind, from the contents of the mind. And the contents of the mind are thoughts and emotions and sensory information. Okay, any questions? Or great. Anyone else got any comments or things to say before we finish up? All right, lovely. Let's call it a day then, shall we? Okay, well, shall we have a look at some dates quickly, just to confirm next time? So the next one is on the 17th of January. Yeah, great. And that's the bioenergy layer next. So that's always an interesting one because we talk about all the different systems in the energy body, chakra system, meridian system of vessels, and yeah, lots of other stuff. And the chakra breathing, of course, comes in that lesson. Great. Okay. Well, lots going on in between then. So happy Christmas, everybody, and I hope everyone has a lovely holiday period. And we'll see you guys in January.